Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2023 film Dream Scenario. And here's the thing, it's an A24 film. It's technically on IMDb as comedy horror. There definitely is some horror to it, but I would say it actually fits more into like comedy drama. But since it's categorized as horror, I'm reviewing it, and I do think there's enough horror in it to partially consider it a horror film. But the thing is, A24 for me, especially with their horror stuff, almost every single time hits for me. And this is one of those films. I think it's really good. I highly recommend it to everyone. And it's one of those films that I love so much that just makes you continue to think after the film is done. And it's also one of those films that holds a mirror up to the audience and says, this is what's going on in society right now. These are the ills that are plaguing us. Some of them, not all of them. But that's what the horror genre has been about for the longest time. It's about reflecting the ills of society, reflecting the anxieties that we have as a people, and this film really does a good job with that. Now, this is a no spoiler review, but at the very end I'm going to talk about thematic stuff that will spoil that thematic stuff, so I will give a warning before I go into that, so you can stop if you don't want to know that aspect, but it's spoiler free up until then. So anyway, this one was written and directed by Kristoffer Borgli, who also did Drip and Sick of Myself. Now, Sick of Myself was actually put out through a partner label, I forget which one, with Vinegar Syndrome recently, and they were really hyping it, and I think John Waters said it was his favorite film of I think, 2023, and I was kind of interested. I watched the trailer, I was like, yeah, I don't know, but after seeing this now, I kind of really want to see Sick of Myself. The film stars Nick Cage. I mean, here's the thing. If you like Nick Cage, this movie is a must. It is a 100% must because his performance in this is unreal. I mean, it rivals his performance in Pig. And I know a lot of people ranted and raved about how amazing he was in Pig. Me included. I thought he was phenomenal in Pig. Dream Scenario, right up there. Doing a phenomenal job yet again. Love Nick Cage. Also in this, Tim Meadows has a small role. Obviously best known from, Saturday Night Live and being in some other movies. Michael Cera, everyone knows Michael Cera, and Dylan Baker. So for people who might not know Dylan Baker, think Trick or Treat as the principal in the movie, the killer principal, and Happiness, if you've ever seen that, which is another phenomenal film. But Dylan Baker, amazing actor. So quick synopsis, it's basically about Nicolas Cage's character, who's just a regular kind of everyday Joe, who's a professor. He teaches at a university, and people start telling him that they've been having dreams with him in it. And it's just him being there, just appearing in these dreams. And then it becomes this big phenomenon where so many people are experiencing him in the dreams, but things kind of progress. Things in his life and things within the dreams kind of end up progressing. And that's where you get into that kind of horror territory eventually. But it's about how things kind of go after that, how things snowball, how things spiral. And like I said, it's about a bunch of ills that we have in our society right now, which I'll talk about at the very end with the theme stuff. But that's all I'm going to say about it. But it's definitely weird, it's definitely fun, it's definitely interesting, and it's definitely funny. That's another thing. If they're going to bill it as horror comedy, then there better be comedy, and there's definitely comedy. The movie is weird from the get-go. Now, as weird as it starts, it does step back from that for a little bit and kind of let you get a real-world establishment as to what's going on, who these people in the film are, and then they kind of get back into the weird again. So the first scene, it's not all going to be super weird like that. So just know that they kind of ground it more after that. For some reason, the film actually looked like it was like 70s film stock, kind of a little bit blurry and like old. I watched it through Vudu, so I'm wondering if it was just the version that Vudu had, because they have a tendency to not actually always do HD, which I don't understand. So that may have just been standard definition that they were just putting up there, which I don't get, because I literally digitally bought the movie from them, so it should be like the highest quality. But I don't know if that was an actual choice by Borgli, or it had to do with Voodoo. I'm not sure. Maybe someone could tell me in the comments. Right out of the gate, Cage is so much fun in the role. I said he did a phenomenal job, but it's not just that. With Nicolas Cage, you can tell when he's having fun with a role. You can tell when he's putting a little extra sauce in there. And this is one of those roles. You can tell he had a great time just chewing scenery, being himself, and giving the most enjoyable performance that he could. And he really does. He's a joy to watch in this. I can't really think of other people that would have also done an amazing job like this, but he's so good. There is some real nice day-to-day humor that's relatable. So when I was talking about the comedy, saying it legitimately is funny, a lot of that is in the form of like daily things that everyone kind of deals with. So the humor would hit for the majority of people, because it's like, that's why I say like day-to-day humor. It's like stuff that happens because this is what everyone does, like from day to day. Like, it's very relatable, very understandable where the humor's coming from, and for that reason I think most of the time it hits quite well. So they did a good job writing that one, or Borgli did. The dialogue is very well written, and it pairs really nicely with the way the characters are also written and the acting. You know, I'm talking a lot about how great Nick Cage is, but everyone else does a phenomenal job. There isn't a single performance that's weak. It's just that Cage sticks out so much because it's who he is. You know, he's a very, how do I say this? He's a very boisterous, no, probably more, a little bit of like a flamboyant actor with his roles sometimes. So he really sticks out, but he's also the main character. So there's that reason as well. They show actual cinematic sequences of the dreams that Cage ends up appearing in. Not every single one of them, but they give you a good idea of like what's actually going on instead of people just describing it. And I really like that extra detail to the film. I think it really helps get the audience in the correct mindset of you know, how they should be feeling, because it gets them literally into the minds of those characters talking about what's happening. It's not a fast-moving film, but the story progression, I think, moves at a decent pace. There is a lot of just kind of talking in the film, but since it does have a humor to it, that helps it move a lot faster. Since Cage's performance is so good, that helps it feel like it moves faster. And like I said, I feel like the actual story they're trying to tell progresses at a good pace. It's just, there's not a lot of like action to it or like active things happening. It's a lot of conversations going on, but it's still super engaging. Because like I said, the dialogue, unbelievably well written. Love it. Well, believably, but you know. There's a hilarious scene on a couch that I laughed very hard at. And I don't laugh when I'm watching a movie by myself very often, like out loud very often. And I did for this scene. So if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. It's a scene that takes place on a couch. Very funny. It's my type of humor. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of juvenile. It's my type of humor. I love that scene. I wasn't sure that this would actually get to a horror realm, but it eventually does. That was one of the things, like, it takes a long time actually getting to the horror aspect of it, but I do think that's actually important for the story itself to not rush it too fast. So don't go into it thinking I need horror immediately and I need horror frequently in this film. It'll show up, and it's not as hard as a lot of people probably want it to go, but it will show up, so, you know, be patient. Social media ends up being dealt with in this and how it impacts the story's main points. So it's, again, another aspect of kind of being, you know, firmly placed in our current society and the kind of the issues we have, because obviously we have a lot of problems with social media. Not only what people do on social media, but how social media ends up negatively impacting individuals and society as a whole. And they do deal with some of that stuff. There's a ridiculous level that something in this film ends up hitting, and it becomes humorous, but you could also kind of actually see it happening in real life. Like, it's a stretch, but then when you really think about it, you're kind of like, maybe it's not too far of a stretch, and that's actually kind of concerning and scary. And it's at the very end. You'll know what I'm talking about. I'll just say it's a piece of technology. Just going to say that, and people will now know, if you've seen it, what I'm talking about. Like, I was just like, oh, this is so, like, stupid and ridiculous and humorous, but then I was like, I could see that happening eventually, though. That's concerning. Don't really like that. The ending does feel like it's a bit too drawn out, unfortunately, because it could have finished with a lot more impact, in my opinion. But still really like the film. Still thought, overall, it's a good ending. It's just the ending needed to be shaved down some. And I just think in general, this film actually needed to be shaved down a little bit. It's like an hour and 40 minutes, and it feels like it probably needed maybe 10, 15 minutes cut down from it, but other than that, really good. And the last thing I'm going to say before I get into the theme stuff, this film actually reminds me a lot of films like Being John Malkovich and Adaptation, which the funny thing is Nick Cage was also an Adaptation, which I own both those movies. Wonderful movies, love them. And both of those movies also are about the main character or the main actor's main character performance and how enjoyable it is. But also, the subject matter. So now I'm going to get into the thematic stuff. So if you don't want to know any of that theme related stuff, you can go ahead and stop right now because I'm about to continue with it. Here we go. This film speaks to the desire to be known, but also how that can become a problem and the reality that you can't control how people end up viewing you at that point. This is something that I understand because I've been doing a YouTube channel, so to some degree, I do want to be known. I want to be known within the horror community as a person that people can come to and we can start a conversation about horror. And it also feels good to me if people, are commenting or letting me know somehow that recommendations I'm making are ones that they've enjoyed, or they find that their views on films are lining up with mine, or they like what I have to say about film. So I understand that whole wanting to be known thing, and that's very key to this film. And then also just what the consequences after that are, because once you find notoriety or once you're recognizable to people, especially enough people, it gets to a point where you can't control where it goes from there. And that means that people will view you whatever way they end up viewing you. What you want to be known for doesn't necessarily end up being what you are known for. Sorry. Took a little bit. It's one of those days. My apologies. It also takes on cancel culture and how there are many instances of it getting out of control. Obviously, cancel culture is a big thing that's popped up in the past many years. And, I am of the opinion that there are people who are such terrible human beings that cancel culture, totally good, totally fine. But there are a lot of instances where people go overboard and they will see one negative thing about a person, or they'll make assumptions about a person, usually online, and they'll try to get them canceled, basically. And that's horrible and that's wrong. And it's sometimes gotten us in certain instances, has gotten us to points where people feel like if you make one mistake in your life, if you do one thing wrong, then you are irredeemable. And that's one of the biggest problems. I'm not saying that that's what this film is necessarily dealing with, but I'm just kind of giving you my thoughts on it. But yeah, we are fallible. Every single human being has done something wrong in their life or something that they wish they hadn't done. And for that reason, we need to understand that people should be changing as they get more life experience, as they get older, as they get wiser. We should all be changing. I'll say that there are things in my past that I don't think I'm proud about. And I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I never said that, or I wish I never did that. But I can't change that. I can just be the best person I can be right now. And that's the important thing. But anyway, enough about that. Off the soapbox for that one. And then the last thing I wanted to say about thematically with this film, there's an aspect to this about people not dealing with their own issues, but instead blaming others and going after them like they are the problem. And I think this is another huge societal issue that's probably gone on since the beginning of time with humans, where people feel insecure about themselves, or they have struggles that they're dealing with, and they take it out on other people. They want to find a scapegoat for it. They want to point to someone else and say, I'm not the problem, you're the problem, or I shouldn't have to deal with my issues. You should deal with the issue that I see that I have placed upon you, in essence. I identify you personally with this issue, even though it's actually my issue to deal with. That type of stuff. And like I said, I think that's been going on for a very long time, and it's a problem. But it's also hard because I think a lot of people don't find it comfortable to look inward and to really kind of analyze yourself to a degree and figure out, what is wrong with how I act or who I am as a person and what would be good if I could change. I'm not a perfect person, but I do like to try and think about, what can I improve upon as a human being, and what can I change to be a better person, to be nicer to other people, to do more for the people in my life that are important to me. And not everyone's like that, because it is uncomfortable, and I understand that. It's hard to get past those things. It's hard to realize that there's something wrong with you, or something that isn't optimal, something that isn't great, or viewed by other people as not great. And for that reason, like, you never want to feel like there's something wrong with you, or like you're wrong, or like you're a bad person in any way. But in those instances, if you are doing something, and, you know, maybe it's just kind of ignorance, you just don't really get it, it's good to reflect on those things and, you know, try and make an effort to make that change. But that's my thoughts on it. This is where I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on specifically the movie, but if you want to, you know, chime in with some other things politely, obviously, because that's how it always is with these videos, go ahead and put it in the comments. Out of 5 stars, half stars, and play, I'm going to give Dream Scenario a very good 4-star rating. I really enjoy this film. Another great A24. Big into this. Like I said, if you're a Nick Cage fan, this is a must. A must. But anyway, thank you for checking out this video. Please do me a favor and hit the like button on it if you enjoyed it at all. That also helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Hit the notification bell button if you want to know when I'm putting up new videos. And make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you want to support me even the littlest bit. Because if you've liked any of my videos, please just subscribe to me. That does help me out. And I'm appreciative. But regardless, thanks for taking your time to watch this. I do appreciate that. And until next time, keep it brutal.